Hey guys, it's T and
Joel. How are you doing today?
doing good. That's good. Well, today's video is about our birth story. So we're basically going to talk about everything that happened during our birth with little man over here who's asleep. So what we're going to do is just start from the beginning and just give you guys everything that what happened and kind of go from there. So this again is our birth story. Hope you enjoyed it. And here we go. So, as I had mentioned in previous videos, we just had a baby. He's actually 7 weeks today. Today's Tuesday, so he's 7 weeks today. He was born on January 19th. Basically what happened is on Monday, January 18th, we went to my last doctor's appointment, my husband and I. And we just thought it was just going to be a regular appointment like any appointment has been in the previous weeks. But after that appointment ended, the doctor actually advised us that he was going to induce us on that day. We were supposed to be induced the following day, which was Tuesday, January 19th, which is actually his due date. But the doctor instructed us that he would rather us be induced on the 18th, which was that Monday. So after our doctor's appointment, we basically went to get something to eat, came back home, relaxed a little bit, and then after that, our time to check in at the hospital was at 7 p.m. So we actually don't live too far from the hospital, thank God. We only live like 10-15 minutes from the hospital. So we left the house here at maybe about, what would you say, about 6:45, 6:40?
6:30. Tampa
6:30?
time.
6:30?
Tampa driving traffic, it tripled the time, but it only took us 10-15 minutes. We took a helicopter there, so we're lucky.
I wish. But yeah, so we drove there. It took us about 10-15 minutes to get to the hospital. Got checked in about, I would say about 7:30. They took us to the labor and delivery section of the hospital, St. Joseph's here in Tampa, Florida. And what they did was actually just check us in, and I went and I changed into my gown and everything. And they basically, the process of the induction was basically to insert what they call Cervidex. So they inserted the Cervidex into, vaginally to start the labor process. Because you remember I was being induced, so it's not like I walked in with labor. So they pretty much, it's kind of like an artificial way of starting labor. So once they started that was about 8:15. So the nurse told me that she will do it every 4 hours if she didn't see any progress with my dilation. So she started the first one. She inserted the first one at 8:15. So 8:15, everything was done. She was basically reading my monitor from her station that I was strapped onto in my room, and she was like, she came in like maybe after an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and she's like, have you been feeling your contractions? And I said, no, I didn't even know I was having contractions. So she showed me on the graph, and she's like, oh, these are contractions here, and these are really big contractions. I said, well, I'm not feeling them at all. So that was around, I say, about maybe 10 o'clock in the night. So she checked me right before midnight, and I still didn't progress at all. I came into the hospital at 1 centimeter, and by 4 hours after she put the first Cervidex in, it was, I still was 1 centimeter. So she had to, of course, insert the other one, because again, they do it every 4 hours if you do not progress with your dilation. So now 12:15, she puts the second one in. And maybe about half an hour, after that, I started to feel the contractions. Hubby over here was out. He was sleeping on the bed next to me. He was snoring and everything, and I'm just pretty much watching TV. And I started feeling like the menstrual cramping that everyone talks about when you're having labor. And I was like, oh wow, this is it. So it was definitely bearable. So I just let it ride. I ride it out and whatever. And then maybe the second hour of that second cervical insertion, excuse me, I think that's when it started getting really, really strong. So I wake hubby up and I was like, babe, I think I'm in labor right now. I'm feeling contractions. So he was like, oh great, that's wonderful. So now this is
your water broke yet, though, right?
No, it hadn't broken yet. No, it hadn't broken yet. So what happened then is I'm trying to remember everything, how it happened, because everything, sometimes some things were a blur. So once the contraction started, everything pretty much started really going fast at that point for that second cervix, and that was inserted at 12 midnight. So what happened then was that after that, the contraction started getting really strong, and I believe me, oh my gosh, believe me when I said I tried to write it out at that point, but it was getting to the point that it was getting unbearable, where I was getting to the point where I was actually shaking, my body was shaking. So at that point I said, okay, this is it, I have to get an epidural. So I pressed the little button that was attached to my bed to call the nurse at her station. She came in, and I told her what I've been feeling. I've been feeling the contractions. She's like, oh, that's wonderful, that's great, that means you're progressing. And I'm like, lady, just please give me an epidural. So I requested an epidural right away. So she was like, well, let me go ahead and contact your doctor and see if it's okay for us to go ahead and start the epidural process, seeing that you're only still 1 centimeter. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So she went to get the doctor, and I'm just praying, I'm saying, please, I hope he just tells her yes, that he can give me the epidural. So she comes back in about 10-15 minutes, which seems like 15 hours when you're going through that kind of pain. But about 10-15 minutes later, she came back and she said, yes, the doctor said you can go ahead and start the epidural. So I'm like, okay, where's the anesthesiologist? So she said, well, I'm going to go ahead and call him now so he can come in, and we'll go ahead and get the epidural started. So I'm like, okay, great. And they were just in that time frame, I think. How long would you say that the anesthesiologist finally came into the room?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, yeah, it took about quick. 30 minutes, but it was quick. Yes, it was quick. 30 minutes seems quick, but when you're going through that kind of pain, 30 minutes seems like hours. So when the anesthesiologist assistant came in, I was telling her exactly what was going on, and then shortly after, the anesthesiologist came in as well. So I usually watch birthing stories where when they give you an epidural, or when they give a mom to be an epidural, they usually sit you up in like a seated position at the end of the bed, and they have you hunched over. But it was a little bit different with me. For some reason, they told me that they didn't want me in that position, so they had me lay on the bed on my left side. So I was in my left side, kind of like balled in, I guess like a C shape, and they had me kind of ball my back in. And that's how they did it. But I told him, I said, listen, I'm having a contraction right now. Please don't stick me right now. Let me just let the contraction ride out, and then as soon as then, you can go ahead and get the epidural. And thankfully, they abide by that. So once the contraction was over, they went ahead and started with the epidural. And he told me that there's going to be a lot of burning, so, you know, don't be alarmed when you feel that. So as soon as he inserted the needle, I did feel like burning sensation. But at that point, all I wanted was relief. So they finally put in the medicine, the epidural, everything was done. I went back on my back, and they told me, I asked them, how long will it take before it actually I start to feel, or not feel the contractions anymore? And she told me it would take about 15-20 minutes. So I'm like, okay, great. Have another contraction. I had a couple of contractions, and I'm like, okay, 20 minutes has passed. I'm like, I told the anesthesiologist assistant, I'm like, I'm still feeling this pain. Am I still supposed to feel this pain after 20 minutes? And she said, well, not really. She said, well, you're pretty tall. I'm 5'7". I'm not that tall, but she said, for your height, maybe we need to add extra medicine to your your epidural. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So once they did that, then I started feeling the relief of the contractions, so that was great. But initially, the first doses that they put in the epidural, I still felt the contractions, and I was like, oh no, this is not working. I'm saying, oh, please God, please let this work, because it was at that point unbearable. So when they finally did that, I would say that would be like around maybe 2 in the morning, and this was around 2 a.m. Tuesday, January 19th. So once that happened, I would say maybe 2 or 3, well, actually, once they gave me the epidural, maybe a half an hour later, my water just broke. And I felt the pop. Even though the epidural, they say you're supposed to be numb and you don't really feel a lot of stuff, I felt when my water broke. And I told my husband, I said, babe, I think my water just broke. So he pressed the button to call the nurse at the station, and she came into the room, and she checked, and she was like, oh yeah, your water definitely broke. So she checked in everything, and at that point she checked me, and again this was like about maybe a half an hour after I had an epidural. So she checked me and she's like, wow, you're like 2 or 3 centimeters already. I'm like, great. Because remember, when I first walked in, when I first got checked in, I was only 1 centimeter. So now I'm like 3 centimeters after having an epidural, so that was wonderful. By 4 a.m., the nurse checked me again, and I was 6 centimeters. So now the nurse was like, oh, this is so great. She's like, for the first time baby, for a first pregnancy and a first, delivery, labor and delivery, you're going really fast now. So I was like, okay, great. So at that point, it was about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, okay, you would say, my husband was like, well, we're gonna have this baby by at least 7, 8 o'clock the latest. I'm like, in the morning. I was like, okay, great. Not. You want to say anything?
Basically, it was a 24-hour labor.
It wasn't 24 hours.
It was almost 24 hours. So
it was more like, I would say 17, 18 hours total.
Well, you know how your parents tell you, they walked uphill through 10 feet of snow and they didn't have internet service and all those things? Well, she can tell baby Xavier, yeah, I had 24 grueling hours of labor. So that way he can really feel what she went through to give birth.
Yeah. So at that point I was 6 centimeters, and the nurse everybody was like cheering me on. Yes, and I'm cheering myself on. My husband's cheering me on, and I'm like, great, we're gonna have this baby soon. Only 4 centimeters to go. That'll be great. So, to our surprise, hours later, let's just fast forward hours later. Now we're talking about after the epidural. We're talking about maybe 9, 10 hours later. I still was 6 centimeters. Nothing was going anywhere. At this point, now we're talking about in the afternoon on Tuesday the 19th, January 19th. So by maybe 3 o'clock, the doctor said, you know what, we're just not seeing any change yet, and whatever, we're just going to wait. I said, well, yes, I definitely want to wait. I want to write it out to see exactly if I can just continue to progress, because it happened so fast the first couple hours after the epidural. I was sure that, it was going to happen soon, where I would get to 10 centimeters. So now about 4 o'clock, the doctor came in and she was like, well, we need to figure out what else we need to do at this point, because it seems like you're just not progressing. So I said, so what are you saying? And she said, well, we don't want to put the baby under any more stress, so I'm going to give it an hour or so, and if we don't see anything happen or any change, then we will have to go and have a cesarean. And I'm just like devastated at this point. Now, I did not have a birth plan. I plan on not having a birth plan, because I know most moms, when they go in or when they check into a hospital to give birth and they have a birth plan and things don't go their way, they will be disappointed. So I went in knowing that I didn't go with a plan, and if whatever happens, happens. So even if I had to have a cesarean, I would be whatever is best for my baby and myself. I'm definitely for it. But yes, I would have liked to have a vaginal birth, but I wasn't planning to have a cesarean. But again, I was up for whatever the doctor instructed. So at this point, around 4:30, they started prepping me to have a cesarean. So after they prepped me, they wheeled me into the room. They left my hubby in the room, and they wheeled me into the operating room. They told him to get dressed and put on his his gown or whatever and his mask, and while they prepped me for the cesarean. So once they wheeled me into the emergency room or into the operating room, got me all ready and everything, and literally it just felt like a few minutes. He came in and they started the process. It was incredibly scary. It was the most scariest experience I've ever had in my entire life. I've never had any kind of surgery prior to this cesarean. So everything was new to me, and just going through that was very, very, very hard. So, but literally it took a couple minutes, like what would you say, 30 minutes or so after you walked in?
30 to 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes. It seemed like it was really, really like, it feel like it was like 15 minutes to me. From the time they started the incision to when I heard him cry. But everything went well. He came out healthy, 8 pounds even, nice, healthy, strong baby, and
long too.
Yeah,
21 inches.
21 inches, 8 pounds. Yeah, and yeah, that was pretty much how our birthing story went. And then after, of course, they sewed me up, got him all cleaned up and everything. They took us to my room, which I stayed for about 4 days to recover. And the recovery process was definitely difficult in the hospital because, again, you had just had a major surgery. So, you know, it was definitely very painful. After we were in the hospital, we had checked in again Monday, January 18th. We were discharged on the 22nd, which was that Friday. Came home with baby. So now we left the house just 2, and we came back with 3. And everything has been great so far. Today, exactly today, he is 7 weeks old. So my baby's almost 2 months. I can't believe his time has gone by so fast, but he is 7 weeks today. He's a big boy, and he's probably almost about 12 pounds as well. Also, my recovery after a week of being home, after a week, pretty much I felt like myself again. There was some little pains here and there, but it wasn't so much the pain of the incision. It was more of my uterus. My uterus, everything was contracting back and going back into shape or whatever. So that part of it was definitely painful, the uterus, but the incision never really bothered me at all. And like by week 2, I was wearing I had put on a girdle, and I've been wearing a girdle ever since. And I mean, it's been really easy. I mean, the doctors prescribed me painkillers when I discharged me, and I never even took them. I write it out. I pretty much just write it out. I didn't have to really get medicine or anything like that for pain. But yeah, everything has been great so far. Baby's doing well. He is smiling a lot. Definitely smiling a lot when you talk to him. He's just been a joy. He's getting better at sleeping too. The first, I would say, 5 weeks, he would get up every 2 hours in the nighttime to feed. But I would say within the last 2 weeks, it's been such a joy just to know that he's growing. I can see he's growing. He's eating a lot more, so that means he's sleeping a little bit more. So now sometimes he sleeps in the nighttime at least 4 hours. And to me, going through getting up every 2 hours, 4 hours now is like heaven. So he's been doing really great. Did you want to add anything?
Just a couple of things on the birth that you forgot to mention.
Okay.
One of them was when she was at 6 centimeters and the doctor decided to deaccelerate her contractions because they were afraid of the risks.
Yeah.
And then they got to the point where at that point then she was just kind of coasting. She wasn't really going forward. I don't think she got past 7 centimeters. So at that point they said,
No.
okay, it's time to perform a cesarean. And then also Xavier had jaundice at first, so he had to wear these.
How could I forget that?
He had to wear his little cool little sunglasses. So we had to go visit him for the first couple days. There we go. See it right here. He wore sunglasses, and they weren't Versace or Dolce & Gabbana or Oakley's, but hey, you know they worked for.
They were made by St. Joseph's Women's Hospital.
Yep. So he had those.
Yeah, and I'm so surprised at myself that I forgot about the whole jaundice part, because maybe because it was something that was really hard for me to deal with, not, you know, just giving birth to a baby and, you know, having him taken away from you. Now, thankfully, he wasn't in the NICU, he was just in the nursery. But the day after we gave birth, because when he was born, he was actually born on his due date, January 19th, at what, 5:10? I think 5:10 p.m. Eastern. And by the time, like the next day, Wednesday, they came in and did all the check. They checked his hearing, they checked his side and everything, and the nurse came and told me that they saw that he had a little bit of high levels of jaundice, that they have to take him to the nursery. So they had to take him to the nursery that Wednesday morning. So now I had just given birth the previous day, and now the next day my baby's taken away from me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm thinking it was just going to be a couple of hours. Well, it was the whole of Wednesday and pretty much Thursday. Thursday night is when they brought him back into our room, and he spent a night, and then the next day we were discharged. So I hadn't had him with me for pretty much almost 2 days of the time that I was in the hospital. So that was definitely very hard. I mean, not having your baby in the room with you, you have to, and it was so emotional. It was an emotional time for me, and I think that's probably why I didn't even mention it, and why I didn't even mention it earlier. But just thinking about it now, it still gets me really teary-eyed, because it was just definitely a hard thing to have to deal with. And every time I go upstairs to the nursery, I see him under this light, and they would have him lay on his stomach, and he would be under this light with those sunglasses my husband just showed you. I mean, my mom came from New York. I had friends and co-workers who would come in to visit us. No one can see him. I mean, we took him upstairs to the nursery, but they couldn't go past the door, so they would just look at him through the glass. So, you know, it was just hard, you know. And I think that's the reason why, too, why I'm having such a difficulty breastfeeding him, because I didn't get a chance to do that whole skin-to-skin thing with him. I didn't get to do the whole breastfeeding thing with him because, again, he was in the nursery. So they asked me if I wanted to bottle feed him, and of course I said yes, because I didn't want him to not eat, you know. But so I think the whole formula thing, and he got so used to that, and the nipples and the bottles, and it's been such a nipple confusion for him. He does not want to nurse at all for me. So what I've been currently doing is just pumping and giving him whatever I can get from my breast, but mostly he is formula fed, which has been very difficult for me to deal with, because I wanted to strictly breastfeed him. But you know, it is what it is. So as long as he's healthy and he's eating, that's all that really matters right now. So yeah, so by Thursday night he was cleared from the jaundice, and everything went well, so he was good there. And that's it. If you wanted to add anything else that I might have forgotten?
Yeah, the staff, the nurses there were amazing.
Yeah.
So we were definitely impressed by how well they took care of us while we were there.
They were very, very welcoming, very warm. Really made our stay there comfortable, you know, with this, you know, with going through everything that else we were going through with the whole jaundice situation. You know, they were very accommodating, very helpful, answered any questions we had. And you know, even if I had to take trips up to the nursery 10 times a day, they welcomed us. And you know, it was nice seeing his little face, but it really was hard to see him under those lights for such all those hours of just being under that light. And I'm like, this is my poor baby.
Yeah, it was tough.
It was really, really tough.
But
yeah.
He's here, and that's the most important thing.
He's here, he's healthy, and that's the most important. And he's snoring right now too. He's totally out.
Yeah, that's good.
He passed his feed time.
All right, and you didn't ask me about my birthing plan. I had a birthing plan.
What was your birthing plan?
My birthing plan? Okay, well, first of all, guys, you have to bring your Mr. Belvedere game. So you got to make sure that your wife has everything she needs. You know, cranberry juice cocktail. The peanut butter that they get in the refrigerator, they give you the peanut butter to give them, because they can't really eat a whole lot, so it was mainly juice, and then afterwards it was light meals. And also, for you guys, when you have a really long delivery process, I definitely recommend subscribing to Netflix or Hulu. So in between time, you can jump in and catch up on your shows. So that's the best birth plan that I can give you for all the guys out there. Let's see what else. I think that's it then. That's it. Just remember, wait on your wife and have Netflix ready. And bring extra chargers for phones so you can update all your stuff for Facebook. Because if you don't have that, you know, you're a loser. So you got to make sure you got to have all that stuff, because you got to download the photos and put them on the Facebook right away.
I don't know why I feel we're forgetting something.
Oh, I also changed the first diaper.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And he did a great job doing that too.
They were impressed. The doctor and the nurses were surprised at my skills.
Yeah, that was a pretty big one too.
Yep, I got skills.
You got skills.
Diaper skills.
So yes, he's sleeping right now, but we wanted to show the little man. This is the little man we have here now. He is super duper adorable. His name is Xavier, but we call him Xavier Bear. He's sleeping.
He was sleeping.
He was sleeping. He's up now. And so yeah, we're gonna you're gonna see a lot more of him and watch him grow and get tall and big and strong. And the next video I plan on doing would be his 2-month follow update, which he has an appointment coming up soon. So I'll do a video on that too, and just let you guys know how much he has progressed since the 1-month update that I did on the previous video, which I will actually add the link to that on this video so that you guys can see it if you haven't already seen it. So, but that's pretty much it. Say hi, baby. Hi. Yeah, but that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and again, please subscribe. Definitely tell people, our friends and family, about us, and definitely thumbs up so that you know, we can get some good reviews or views, or whatever you want to call it. But that's pretty much it, guys. Again, if you have any suggestions, anything that you would like to see us do on any upcoming videos, just definitely let us know. We're welcome to take any advice at all. So definitely tell us what you would like to see us do. But we definitely have a lot of other videos coming up soon, and I have a plan of some other things that I plan on showing you guys as well. So definitely take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care.
See
Bye.
ya. Bye.
Say bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.